When I was a sophomore, I went out with one of my friends, Ian, to Copley Square with a large, old-fashioned 4x5 camera. It was kind of a heavy thing and needed to be deployed on a tripod each time we wanted to use it. And taking a picture took a long time, too. So we went to the middle of the square, aimed our camera at Trinity Church. The old camera also had another quirk. The automatic exposure times on the shutter didn't work. So we would hold a button and count for however long we wanted to keep the shutter open. In the midst of the exposure, a man came up to us and asked us, "What college do you go to?" Now, I'd like to think that the gentleman thought we were college students because we radiated maturity or something of that nature. Commonwealth is a school for the mature. In retrospect, it was probably because, at the time, Ian was sporting already a gruff-looking beard. Over my 4 years, I've learned how to quickly explain what Commonwealth is whenever I've been asked where I go to school. I go to Commonwealth, a small private school in the Back Bay. This quick intro is often necessary because most people don't know what a Commonwealth is. I thought I knew what the school is. I could sum it up in a quick sentence. However, on this occasion, when I gave my quick, "We go to Commonwealth, a small private school a couple blocks that way," I noticed a spark in the man's eye. The man knew of the place. In fact, he knew our headmaster, Mr. Bill Wharton. In fact, he must have known him well because when I said that, he said, "Oh, you're one of Bill Wharton's boys." Suddenly, Commonwealth became a different school. Instead of a small private school in the Back Bay, we were a posse led by wild Bill Wharton himself. Beard Man Ian and I were two of the henchmen guarding an outpost on our local turf. Commonwealth was a school for cowboys, cowgirls, and six-shooters. This wasn't the first time my impression of Commonwealth changed. I probably first knew I would be a Commonwealth student when I was looking at applying to high schools. And my brother, a sophomore at the time, told me not to go here. Suddenly, I knew that this was the school I wanted to go to. Commonwealth became a school for little brothers. And this was reinforced later when, during a heated argument with my brother, he retorted, "Wow, you really do belong with the rest of us." Suddenly, Commonwealth became a school for logicians and arguers. In our revisit days, we read a short essay of Mark Twain's with Mr. Wharton called Cornpone Opinions, the point of which, as I recall, was summarized by the phrase, "You tell me where a man gets his cornpone, and I'll tell you what his pinions is." For better or for worse, Commonwealth is where we got our cornpone. My first Commonwealth conversation was on placement day. Before we were freshmen, we had to take tests to determine which math and language levels we should go to. When everyone else was taking the language test, 3 of us, who knew that we would take beginner-level classes, didn't have to take a test. So we began with awkward hellos, as much as you would expect from budding teenagers about to enter a new high school. As we went on, however, our conversation shifted suddenly from formal hellos, and we began talking about what the Mass Ave Bridge might look like if it were turned into Jell-O. Commonwealth became a school for Jell-O engineers. Being in Commonwealth meant learning to appreciate the quirks of your classmates. How Ross says, "Ay," every single time someone cracks a pun. Or how Abby always manages a smile on her face no matter what was going on. Or knowing that when Benjamin pours water on you, it really means that he loves you. It meant understanding our heritage as the next generation of Commonwealth students, appreciating what Mr. Merrill meant by "don't roller skate in the hallways." It meant being given the generosity of trust and responsibility, and at the same time, attention and care. Commonwealth is a school of brilliant students who, at times, can be idiots. It is a school that every Thanksgiving brings in the sheaves, and every year sings the spacious firmament, and almost as a reflex, every year some students complain that the school needs a more secular school song. It meant being told not to free ride, not to have ice cream in front of others unless you can share it too, and not to stop at third base. Commonwealth is family. Throughout our time here, we've been immersed in a world that thought it knew what Commonwealth is, sought to tell you what Commonwealth is, but never agreeing with each other. Commonwealth is a book from our English classes, new, clean, ready to be marked up and interpreted. Commonwealth was not a school for younger siblings who argued and engineered with Jell-O with aspirations of being a cowboy. In fact, some would be repulsed by the idea of being one of Bill Wharton's boys. No offense to Mr. Wharton. And sometimes, and maybe more often than sometimes, being in Commonwealth meant hating Commonwealth. It is a school that doesn't own sports facilities. It's a school with difficult classes that swamped you with research papers every year. And from some of us, it led to the BPL making a sizable revenue from fines. It's a school that makes you clean up after yourself. Hancock meals, taking out the recycling, setting up and cleaning up after lunch and recess. Also, it's a school with only 30-something classmates in your grade. The small size naturally meant everyone eventually getting tired of everyone else. Nothing personal, of course, just that being in a small class can be hard at times. Social suffocation, in a sense. These are the people that we've camped with, cooked with, lunch cleaned with, seen at sports games, put up with their corny jokes. But after a while, it all got old. I remember often asking myself whether I preferred the awkward cutscenes of freshman year, where we all huddled and traveled in packs around Boston, not really knowing each other, whether I preferred that over the familial normalcy of seeing everyone in my school my senior year. I wasn't the only one. In short, Bill Wharton's posse decided that this town wasn't big enough for all of us. Perhaps the answer to this issue came in the final English 12 book, Forster's A Passage to India, when Aziz imagined the Persian inscription on his tomb. But those who have secretly understood my heart, they will approach and visit the grave where I lie. A secret understanding is all it takes. Not necessarily compassion or love. Having lived with each other in a tight space, we've certainly achieved the secret understanding, whether we wanted to or not. We've all had times over these last few years where we've been strong and confident, or weak and vulnerable, and we've all been witness to it. We've appreciated each other and sometimes taken each other for granted. We've come to understand each other in our 4 years, and all the stories we've heard or experienced, we've arrived at our own understanding of Commonwealth's heart. However, whether you want to be considered one of Bill Wharton's posse or not, after these 4 years, this town ain't big enough for all of us. We are graduating, and it's up to us whether we want to continue and relive these memories and approach and visit Commonwealth as alums. We flipped our pages, marked up our books, hopefully, and now we will be the ones who tell the stories and give Commonwealth our own meaning. It means no more Tuesdays that are Mondays with Thursday schedule. It means the end of recess, where everyone's birthdays were announced and Miss Grant would tell us about Hindu holidays. It means understanding that it is the end to bus rides to Hancock, full of giddy and tired children. Being in Commonwealth means knowing how to say goodbye. It means bearing with the fact that Mr. Volrath would no longer bid us, "Je te souhaite une bonne soirée," I wish you a good evening, but instead, in our last class, he wished us, "Je te souhaite une bonne vie," I wish you a good life. Thank you.